Hey, third graders. Here we go with lesson 4. So go ahead and open up your book to page 771. This is measure area. Hope you guys are having a great week so far. I know I am. Okay, so here we go. Measure area. Go ahead and read this part with me. So area is the number of square units needed to cover a figure without overlapping. Sometimes you need to count the number of half square units covered by the figure. Okay, so each of these is a half square unit. So here they're showing you a square, okay, a whole square. And you see how this one's cut down to half, and this is half of the square. Okay, this square is cut down this side, so that's half of it. This square is also cut in half, so this the pink area is half, and then this one's cut down diagonal, and the pink side is a half, and the white side is obviously the other half. Okay, now that's going to be important to remember as we look at this lesson. Okay, so Math in My World, example 1. And if I can get this to stay, there we go. In art class, Haley drew the figure at the right on the grid paper. What is the area of the figure Haley drew? And so the area talks about the number of squares in the inside, okay? So the last lesson we learned about perimeter, which is the number of squares on the outside, okay? Area are the number of squares on the inside. And so when we have Haley's figure right here, we're going to count the number of squares on the inside, okay? So I'm going to try to make this a little bigger for you. So if we look, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we have 14 so far, but look, do you see this right here and this right here? This isn't a whole square, but it is cut right down the middle as a diagonal. And so that is half of a square. And then we have another half of a square. So we know that 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1 whole. So this is actually 1/2 and 1/2, but that's 1. So I'm just going to write it over here to make a note that's how many squares I have. So I have 14 plus 1, so that would be 15. Okay, so when we count the number of squares, there are 15. Oh, you can see that. 15 whole squares. Okay. Oh, we skipped ahead. It says count the number of half squares, which we did. There were 2 half squares. 2 halves equal 1 whole. So we added 14 whole squares plus 2 half squares. That's kind of confusing. 14 whole squares plus 1 whole square because we had the 2 halves that we added. So we have a total of 15 whole squares. So the area is 15 square units. Let me get this back to how it was. Okay, so in area, we count the number of squares on the inside of the figure. So go ahead and turn your page. Okay, so I'm up here. Sometimes the units on drawings or figures represent another unit of measurement. And so basically what they're saying is sometimes they'll use a square unit. Sometimes they'll use squares. So it's just saying that they're going to use a different measurement for the area. And you guys will see that as we go on. So example 2 says, Rachel created the geoboard figure at the right to represent a design he created. 1 square unit on the geoboard represents 1 square centimeter on the design. What is the area of the design? And so number 1 says count the number of whole squares. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm just going to count the number of whole squares this time, not the halves. So here we go. We have, so what I'm going to do to make this easier is I'm going to kind of make my squares with a different, like a pen or something that you have that's different other than your pencil. So here is 1 square. So I'm going to make a 1, and then I have 2. Oh, holy smokes, I messed up this one too. That's definitely not 2. Okay, hold on. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, cross that out, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 whole squares. And I already messed up, so we'll try to look past that. But there are 8 whole squares. Now we have a bunch of half squares too. Okay, I'm just gonna shade those halves in so you guys can see them hopefully a little better. I'm sorry it's not great. So here I have half a square. I'm just gonna shade that in. Here I have half a square that I almost messed up on. And here I have half a square. And no. Here I have half a square, here I have half a square, here I have half a square, and here I have half a square, and here I have half a square. So I know it's hard, I'm sorry. So basically what I did was I found all the whole squares, numbered them, and then shaded in all of the half squares, okay? And so now what I'm going to do is I know that I have 8 whole squares, so I'm just going to make a note 8 right here. So here's 8. And actually, let's go ahead and write it down. Count the number of whole squares. There are 8 whole squares. And so now it says count the number of, sorry, you can't see me. Count the number of half squares. So when we count the number of half squares, let's go ahead and count those. So we have, let's see here if I can do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there are 8 half squares. So there are 8 half squares. And 8 halves is going to equal 4 wholes, right? So if we have 8 halves, right? This half will go there, this half will go there, these halves will go there, these halves will go there. So we'll have 4 wholes, okay? So now we're gonna add the 8 squares plus the 8 half squares, which we know are 4 whole squares. So 8 whole squares plus 4 whole squares equals 12 whole squares, okay? So the area is 12 square units. The area of the design is 12 square centimeters. Okay, let's go ahead and go down to guided practice. It says to find the area of each figure. So what helps me with the area is obviously, you've seen me doing it, writing the number inside of each whole square. That just helps me, and I think it'll help you stay organized. So when we look at number 1, we have 1, 2, 3 whole squares, and then we have 1, 2, 3 half squares, okay? So we have 3, so we know that already, but we have 3 halves. So I know that 2 halves gives me a whole, right? But I still have this lonely half. So this is going to be 4.5 square units. Okay, now let's look at number 2. I'm going to do the same thing that I did at the example that we just finished a couple minutes ago. So I'm going to go ahead and trace in my whole squares and just number those. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1/2, 1/2. So I have 4 wholes and 2 halves. I know that 2 halves equals 1 whole. So this will be 5 square units. Okay. I know that this is new for you guys. Just feel free to rewatch this video if you need to watch this again, or if you have any questions during office hours, that would be a great time to ask me. I hope you guys enjoy your day, and I hope I see you guys soon.